Okay. And then I'll do a 5 count and then we'll start going from there.
Alrighty.
All right. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Casually Die Hard. I'm Damien.
And I'm Ashley.
And thank you for joining us once again. We have an independent board game maker with us today. We have Chris from Cheer Up Games. We met them at Rhode Island Comic-Con, and we invited them on to kind of talk about some of their upcoming products, some of the stuff that they've already started with, and where you can find them next. So, Chris, how the hell are you today?
Really good. Thanks very much for having me on. I appreciate it. We just got back from PAX Unplugged in Philly, and it was quite a weekend. We made a lot of great networking connections and sold hundreds of games to some fans new and old. So it's been really a great way to cap off the year.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that seems like the big board game, the biggest board game convention here in America, I would believe.
Yeah.
But it seems like a great way to kind of cap off the year for all the board gamers and stuff. We were looking to go down, but just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Like even if you're casually into board games, it obviously is a little overwhelming if you're like just casually into it, because they play games like 24/7 in the big, huge open table space. When I say there's 1,000 tables of people playing, that's probably an understatement.
Wow.
And then like hundreds of exhibitors. If anybody's, has a favorite game, it's possible that the designer or the publisher is even there, selling them and signing them and talking to customers and stuff. And so, and then of course it's, a trade show. So all of the
Mm-hmm.
more big established companies pitch their new products, and you have like the Pokemon company has a whole booth, and like Disney Lorcana, which is like the new game, the new big hot game
Yep.
right now, was there. The company that makes Wingspan and Catan is usually there. So it's a ton of just like it's like board game, paradise basically. But Philly is a really fun city. I Boston, and I hadn't got down there much before I got to go to the show, and I love it. It's a great, and the other funny thing is that typically this date coincides with the holiday market that they do, and Philly goes a little nuts with like Christmas stuff.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania, so it's definitely a big Christmas area.
And I think I wasn't fully like bodily prepared for that level of Yuletide-ness. And the Christmas market is absolutely nuts. Just like, a 30-foot Christmas tree and just like concerts and vendors outside, and they let you like kind of walk around with drinks and stuff. And that happens to coincide with this weekend so far every year I've gone. And it's just like a really fun thing to just walk outside and go do when you're, done hawking games and talking to people. And I just love the city. It's like really cool. Everything's right there in the center. And, I come from Boston, which is a little bit of a smaller kind of city feel, but it has that history, which I like too. But, we're sister cities, I guess. And it's been really familiar and fun.
I was going to say
awesome.
from the Revolutionary War, sister cities
right.
there.
So how did you sort of get into the board game world? Like, what did you do before? How did you come up with just like, I want to make a game?
Yeah, I have a rather eclectic background. I still work now in kind of the media space, but I come from kind of the music, area of things. And, I got my start out of college in the radio business, actually.
Okay.
Which is just kind of just random and interesting. But then I kind of moved into more like media and stuff. But I also have a little bit of a background, writing comedy and doing some, and I've always been kind of a, make people laugh kind of guy. Like that's just what I do. And I've always been, into games in some form or another my entire life. I mean, I still remember when I got a Sega Genesis, and it was like the best day of my life. I remember, in, maybe elementary, maybe middle school, like during study halls and in school, literally making up my own board games with like stick figures, and like I would cut cards out and stuff like that. And it's just, and they were awful. Like they weren't
they weren't polished.
Yeah, this is not a situation where it's like, and that was my bestseller to this day. Like uh, they were just like, what a kid would make up as a board game. And it's always been kind of in my blood. I've always been a gamer, and I still to this day like try and play video games when I can if I have time.
Mhm.
And then just like it kind of coalesced in around 2015 ish. I have a pretty casual like gaming friend group. We'll play like party games and like some things like Just One, like nowadays, like Just One or
Yeah.
Jackpot is like really popular with the people I play with because they're just we like things that are just easy, simple. I mean, I
Mhm.
Yep.
personally will edge a little bit more into like thicker things. Like I
Mhm.
do still like Catan and like the expansions for it, and and some of, but that's even. I'm not gonna sit down and play like Twilight Imperium. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's not like my level.
Got
Damn.
it.
However it is, I'm sorry.
I haven't played it yet, but I'm so intrigued
Yeah,
by it.
we
Yeah,
very
I
much
mean,
want to.
it's interesting, and I totally respect how awesome it probably is to somebody who is into it. It's just like not
Yeah.
100% my cup of tea. Like that's more overwhelming for me.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
feel like that's probably how a lot of people feel about it, like, that is intense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah, that's a
I'll
lot of game.
if
Yeah.
somebody is able to like teach me or something, I'll play something a little bit more complicated. But I'd say my
Mhm.
game itself is on the casualer side. So some of the more popular ones that I can teach to new friends and stuff like that. And just uh, and anyway, so around that time, and we were playing a lot of some of the more popular party games out there.
Mhm.
That I
Mhm.
won't smirch on the pod by name, but you can probably guess what some of them were. And
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
and they just kind of got repetitive and a little boring, and
Yeah.
Yep.
it kind of got samey. And so I like made just took it upon myself to kind of make my own funny version of it that added like little rules. So almost like drinking rules, or like kind of King's Cup type of rules where it's like, okay,
Yep.
Mhm.
we have to do this silly thing, and for this one, and just to give it a little bit more variety, like something like that. And then not to get into all the weeds, but like a long story short, that kind of transformed into like, wait, if I do this and do this, and it's like it's kind of now its own game. Like it actually is totally
Mhm.
different. And I wrote all these cards and stuff, and then I needed kind of a name and a theme for it. And what you see here on your screen is actually my little logo, which is my little dog Nico, who's
Oh.
Aw.
Nine Pound Papillon, and I took a photo of him that looks exactly like this picture with his tongue like massively out. And I took a picture of it and I was like, oh, that could be like just like a character or something. Like I didn't think much of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Somebody I know like make a cartoon of it, and the second I saw it, and I was like, that's it. That's like my logo. That's exactly what I'm trying to. That's the vibe I'm trying to give off. Like just like you look at this and it's just like you just break down and laugh. Like it's just that's the
Yeah.
and so I even named the game that I ended up creating Cheer Up, because the whole goal of it was, if you play this game, you will like probably laugh, and it's the point of it. It's a party game. It's not like
Mhm.
you're gonna be fighting over who wins. The point of it is to just like have a good time, and there's no like there's rules, but you can kind of make up your own rules and like have fun with it. You know what I mean? Um, and that kind of became like the first product, and I did a Kickstarter for it in 20 um, you know 17, I think, early on, and it didn't fund, and I was like devastated, and I kind of went back to the
Oh.
drawing board and kind of redid all the artwork and started over. And I was determined to kind of make this happen because I was like, I think there's something here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Keep in mind, back then, even that's 7-8 years ago, like you didn't necessarily have to have the most polished product to like bring it to Kickstarter. Nowadays
Yeah.
Right.
it's totally a different animal. You really have to be like, I mean, the biggest board game companies use Kickstarter for reasons I
Mhm.
can't fathom, but they
Yeah.
put like professional level things, right? So back then, I mean, you could kind of put up, not literally, but kind of like scraps of paper type of things and be like, I want to make this, and this is
Yeah.
what I'm raising. But anyway, so I redid everything, and I came back to the drawing board and kind of made it a lot like prettier, funner, like colorful, and we raised like $10,000 to make it, and I didn't have
Wow.
that
Wow.
much of an audience, and that was a few hundred backers, which is all I needed. And
Mhm.
I printed it, and we made a ton of mistakes the first time we did it, and everything was DIY, and like I did print it like professionally with a manufacturer, but just I didn't
Mhm.
know doing. You know, I
Yep.
overpaid for this
Right.
and that. And we got 1,000 copies, and you know, I still remember bringing them to my first ever like convention, like some kind of event. So we have this event in Boston called Boston Fig Festival of Indie Games,
Okay.
and I went to one of the earlier ones that was, I believe it was at MIT at the time, and it's pretty small. I mean, you're talking about maybe
Mhm.
40 vendors, and they have a mix of video game and board games. It's a lot of student stuff.
Yeah.
It was kind of just like, let's try this out. And I'll never forget this, but bought a little banner, set up a table. Like I was just like, you know, even 8 years ago, kind of like this silly little, ooh, I want to see what happens. And
Yeah.
the first person came up to me and I started to explain how to play. And I got about 2 minutes into it and she just goes, yeah, this is like not for me, and walked away.
Oh no.
Whoa.
And I almost quit. And I almost
Yeah.
was like, that was a sign that, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I had the worst imposter syndrome ever. I was
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
I am over my head in this. Like, I'm looking around. I'm like, these people know what they're doing. I'm an idiot. Like, this game's horrible. And I was just like, all right, I'll just like, I mean, I'm here anyway. I paid for the spot. Like, let's just do this. And it was like person after person after that. Like, you could see that like there was a little spark in their eye when they like got it. And it was like, oh,
Mm.
Yeah.
I get this. I understand. And just, you know, again, kind of fast forwarding, but like I've never looked back from that. Like I tell that story because I could have stopped and I could have just been like, I'm just a kid being an idiot and this isn't a real thing. And I just kept going. And then we sold out that print run and we sold out of a second print run and the third
Hell
print
yeah.
came out. And then I came up with another game and I'm on that third print run of that. And they're in stores all over the America. And
Yeah.
you know, they're sold worldwide, and like we're almost going to the next level of like you kind of alluded to when we were talking earlier, but we have 3 brand new games that are coming out in
Mhm.
a month. And
Yeah.
now I'm looking at, I have this whole product line of stuff, and you know, it's like one of those stupid little stories about like you got to believe in yourself and your product and like what you come up with if you truly feel like it is something. Doesn't have to be even the best thing in the world. I think that makes people feel like, oh, if I'm not the best, it's bad. And
Mhm.
it's just like this humbling thing where you're kind of like, it doesn't have to be perfect. I made a lot of mistakes and look where I've gotten just because I'd stuck to it. And that was just like, that's kind of the whole like, you know, little origin story that I like to tell of just, yeah, that's like how it started. It was just somebody hating it completely. And thankfully, I didn't listen to them at all.
Yeah.
It's very similar though because like we started so like the history of this podcast is we started as a professional wrestling podcast because I'm a former independent wrestler.
Okay.
She just
Yeah.
happened to date me.
I got sucked in.
Yeah, and so I created a fan out of her, and I was like, "Oh, I really like talking about wrestling, and I know a lot." So it's like, okay, it'd be kind of cool if like both of these worlds could kind of mend and like
Yeah.
meld, and we started that way. And I was just like, "Wow, we're really hamstrung, and it's becoming a chore to watch the thing that I really love."
Yeah.
And so we decided to take it a different direction, and it's like
Yeah.
we're seeing like marginal success now, and it's like we're just kind of building and building and building, just trying
Yeah.
to like talk to people and like really drive home that like we just want to learn people's stories.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like this is kind of it's kind of like a similar thing. It's like we definitely have stopped like multiple podcasts
Yes.
because we have started like 4 of them, and we've just always had to fine tune it and stuff, and now I
Yeah.
think we're like
It's really about finding your niche, I feel like.
yeah, and like this kind of opens it up because we're able to talk to new people and talk to each other,
Mhm.
and it just gives us the best opportunity to succeed. But my question is you said you started in radio.
Yes.
What were you doing? Because I've always wanted to work in radio
Yeah.
and never had the opportunity to. So now I'm like very intrigued by your radio career.
Sure. Sure. So I mean, something's just happened like randomly, and there might not be like an exciting story about how I invented a new type of radio or anything like that. But basically, in college, I went to kind of a larger state school, and so there was a lot of people from my high school that went there. And one day, I overheard an acquaintance I knew from high school talk about how they were going to, you know, check out the college radio station that was there, and I
Mhm.
was kind of being wayward, like freshman, like away from home, not really sure what I want to do, kind of maybe wasting some time. I'm kind of just like, I gotta just have something here so that I have like something productive I come home from college with other than a degree. So I just said to him, I was like, I heard him say that. I was like, I'm going to come with you. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm getting into. And so I went to like the first meeting, and it was just this like little community like radio station they had at the school, and it was a mix of like community people and school people. And you could basically like have your own show if you wanted to, and they even had like jobs for people. And I do this thing where like I don't like set goals in terms of like I don't do like the mood board of like, okay, I'm gonna like plaster pictures of race cars all over this and someday I'm gonna get a Ferrari. Like I do this thing where I have very patient goals, and in my head I say to myself, I'm gonna have my own radio show, and I just like say that out loud in my head. And I don't like the same way I'm like, I made this game, I'm gonna see it on the store shelf someday. Like it's just something that's like realistic, maybe not pie in the sky, but reach like something that's kind of a cool goal to reach for.
Yeah.
And so I just said that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a radio show like here. And so like over the next few years while I was there, you kind of have to put in your dues a little bit. And I applied and got a show, and it was at 2 a.m. So, and even worse, it was on Saturday nights. So
oh no!
Entire semester of college, not being able to do anything fun on Saturday night because I had to go to a radio station and do a 2-hour radio show from 2 to 4 in the morning. But what that taught me was like, even though I kind of drew that straw, like I was able to be a little experimental and have like a lot of fun with it. And like, who cares? It's 4 in the morning. Like you can do basically whatever you want. I would bring like friends over and interview them. I would like, play any music that I wanted. And like that that was just like a fun, like it was almost like structured freedom in a way. Like it was like, you're technically doing this within the confines of what you're supposed to be doing, but you can basically do whatever. And then, I ended up by my senior year, ended up getting a much better time slot, which was midnight on Friday nights.
I mean, at least you still had Saturday.
Yeah, I got Saturday night, but I had a lot of fun, and it just like taught me to kind of, start to be good at things like this and talking and improving and like talking your feet a little bit, which is really tough for a lot of people. And but that let me kind of just like mess all that up when I was that young. And then I came out of that basically like doing an internship at a radio station that I liked a lot, and that led to connections to like, doing some other things. I was mostly in the promotions or advertising like section of it. I was never on air on anything else like professionally. Not to pretend that I was like, oh yeah, I was number one in my market. Like I was giving away, keychains at, at like, the street team basically. But I ran like, a whole street team at one point. And I ended up like working for a guy who now runs like a huge music festival. And I was kind of on the ground floor of starting working, like he started it all, but just like being there when he started it and getting to like help run a music festival from the ground up. And I met like tons of artists throughout all this.
That's
and
awesome.
I used to like, watch any band I wanted to. And it was to this day, some of the most physical work I've ever done, but it was like an insane fun thing that I kind of had to knock off my bucket list, which is cool. And then kind of pivoted completely after, some things in my life in terms of like career kind of changed. And I still had a lot of like media experience. So I kind of pivoted into more digital advertising kind of stuff. And I've worked for like a few different agencies and even on the brand side. So I've done, a lot with like social media and that kind of thing. So all of that experience really helped me just like combined to, know the ins and outs of like how to promote a product and like what do people want to see from something that they buy and like what's somebody's money worth to them. And just like, the actual, always being kind of a comedian myself, like being able to, write things that are funny and have it make sense. And then combining all of that experience into what I think is literally the perfect little, like, you squish all that down into like a tiny little ball of mass. And like this game that I made is like the perfect example of all my skills and talents mixed together and just being able to make that work was just the thing that I said was like, yes, like this is actually my calling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of it is dumb luck. Like you never know who you're going to run
Yeah.
into, and just some people's little stories are like, oh yeah, and then I ran to this guy and he gave me a job. Like sometimes things like that happen, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the pathway through what seems unrelated like radio to now a little bit.
I really love that
Yeah,
because
that's a great like path, you know?
yeah, and I was gonna say it's sort of like me, like I've had a bunch of different jobs. I've worked in
Yeah.
different industries, like, and I'm always like, how did I get here?
Oh
And
yeah.
now like working on this and like working
Yeah.
towards like eventually, hopefully having this be a main source of income.
Yeah.
It's like just interesting seeing how other people come from those sort of like zigzag paths. And it's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
very motivating actually, where it's like, okay,
I mean, it
see?
makes you realize like some of it you just can't control. Like
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I've had friends that like they're like, I want to work in Hollywood or something. They go out there and they
Mhm.
go try it and they hustle, and it's just like there's so much
Yeah.
competition. It's like
Yep.
if you just don't meet the right person, like you get screwed. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
but the nice thing about the board game community, like when I started, it was even smaller, but now it's like
Mhm.
growing massively.
Mhm.
It's getting so mainstream now that like everything is DIY. Everybody is like an
Mhm.
Yep.
entrepreneur. Everybody starts from literally pen and paper. And to me, that's like the perfect way to enter into something that is as real as you can go to Target and buy something that somebody like literally made, on some index cards one day and now it's on the shelf at Target. Like to me,
Yeah.
that feels
Yep.
like a much more attainable goal than like I want to be in a rock band and play all over the world. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just the competition is it's just like I might as well just not even try that. Like it sounds sad, but I think setting a realistic goal actually makes me much more motivated to try and hit that because it's much more realistic.
Yeah, 100%. I'm the same way. If I set my mind to something that's like very not likely,
Yeah.
it's like you work at it and you work at it
Yeah.
and it's like, "Oh, it's not gonna happen. I
And it
should
just
just
makes you
stop."
depressed. It makes
But
you
like
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and then like but going like incrementally, I think is
Yes.
much better at least for me.
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's me who's like literally tried everything
Yeah.
and just to say that I did it. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
the
like
whole
that too.
the
Yeah.
whole professional wrestling thing, I did it for 3 years because I said I was going to when I was 4 and like
Yeah.
the opportunity fell into my lap. I was a
Definitely.
Civil War reenactor.
Oh my
I'm
god.
a
Yes.
I'm a semi-competitive bowler.
Yeah.
Uh
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've done a lot.
I've had a lot of jobs. You've had a lot of
I
extracurriculars.
love that.
That is true.
Yeah.
That
And
is true.
I'm just you go ahead, go ahead.
No, like I've done that. Like just like I tried to become a Call of Duty pro gamer at
Are
one
Mhm.
you
point. I'm like,
serious?
yeah, like I've tried literally everything. Like
Oh my
I
gosh, that's a
if
riot.
there's something out there, like I similar to you when I was in college, I went to college super late, and I did it online because I wasn't moving to Florida from Pennsylvania, and I did my college online and I went for sports casting because there was an ad on my Facebook feed that said Full Sail University was doing sports casting.
Oh yeah.
If anybody out there wants to go to Full Sail for sports casting, don't do it. It's a scam. But I did it and I met some really cool people there and I did a half-hour Sunday afternoon live baseball show on a random app
Yep,
that nobody downloaded,
yep,
no one listened, and I did it for 2 or 3 months,
yep,
and then it was just like, "This is just not going anywhere."
yep. It's important, I think, to just like recognize, like, I've always been like a big poker player too. So it's not that I'm
Mhm.
like amazing, but I just learned really young, so I just liked it my
Yep,
whole life. And
same.
Mhm.
so, I mean, half of the game is knowing when to give up.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like literally it is. And I think
Yeah.
there's something to be said for like, yeah, a lot of things, if you persevere, the time itself will get you there. But like some things you can actually save yourself headache by
Yeah.
kind of backing off and
Yep.
refocusing onto something that like, and for me it's just like I feel it when I'm just like, this is much more realistic. This is actually working. And it's like you said, incremental. Like
Yeah.
everybody, I think when
Yeah.
people look at creative people or people have done something like, I have a number one album, like they they don't see all of the other stuff and the mistakes and everything else that happened
Right.
before that. You're comparing yourself, who is not that, to that person who's already at the top, right?
Yeah.
So like I think it's really important for people who have a creative idea or like a creative like brain, like something you just know you are that kind of person. You're not the person that sits in, wants to be in like the stuffy office all day and you just need to like make things.
Mhm.
Um, that whether it's music or like film or anything like in between, whatever, or just like performing for something, creating art in some way, like you're looking at all the people that made it professionally and you're just missing everybody underneath and everybody who is doing the early stuff now who are going to be greats in the future. And it's just so hard to like refocus your mind to be like, no, they started somewhere too and they met somebody randomly and they like
Mhm.
Yep.
randomly got I mean, a lot of it is just like who and luck, and it's just like it sounds
Yeah.
kind of lame, but that's actually kind of what it is. And on top
Yeah.
of that, you have to be like it needs to be those things that you can't control, and also, yes, like you do have to persevere, especially when
Mhm.
you're pretty sure that you have something, a product, a piece of art, or whatever that like is different, is unique, and and if most people are kind of giving you good feedback, like you might be on the right track. So, as long as the whole world isn't being like, stop this right now,
Yeah.
usually there's no harm in like continuing if it's for your own, enjoyment at least. But you just never know like what hits, what somebody you meet, like everybody has some kind of power that they bring to the table. And you just never know. Sometimes you got to lean on the network a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. That's why my music career never took off.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't give you any radio plays. I don't really have much
Yeah.
power in that world.
Damn.
But
Otherwise, I'll give you a freebie.
going back to sort of you were talking about in the board game community and how
Yeah.
it's becoming more mainstream. We
Yes.
have definitely noticed that. Like
Yeah.
we're big into board games
The
and
nerds are taking over.
yes.
It's crazy. It's pretty
Yeah,
crazy. And
it is.
you go to these events. I mean, Unplugged is like you said. I think it is. It's the biggest, I would say, consumer one in America. There isn't one
Yeah.
Mhm.
at Gen Con, which is pretty big, but a lot of the other bigger ones are more trade industry stuff that I know of.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, there's many more internationally that are even bigger. Um,
Mhm.
and it's just wild. Like, and COVID messed everything up a little bit, so we had some kind of
Mhm.
like dip in attendance, of course. But like,
Yeah.
now everything is like full scale ahead, full force. Like this convention, to be clear, is just about board games. Like there's no
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
celebrities outside that niche. There's nothing else there. It's not a Comic Con. Like there is just board games, and there is like 50,000 people. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because PAX has
amazing.
PAX East, PAX West, and there's another one. I think PAX South, maybe.
South
Maybe.
doesn't actually exist anymore. They folded it into
Oh,
something.
okay.
But but yeah, so there's East, West, and Unplugged.
Mhm.
And that company also runs a couple other events like C2E2 and some other things that are not gaming specific, I don't think.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think those are the only 3 PAX events that happen. But we do
Mhm.
East and Unplugged, and East
Okay.
is so easy because it's like our backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Unplugged is like, and East is, I would say, 75% video games, 25% tabletop stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's definitely video game heavy. So I'm a person who likes both, so it's kind of cool to like have a show for the niche stuff that I like.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, just the mainstream of it is just nuts. Like going to Target and the board game section is
It's
Massive
huge.
now.
5 aisles. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not just talking about like casual party games. Like we're talking about
Mhm.
like they sell hardcore board games.
Yep.
Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like the game of life was the most hardcore game I played when I was like a little kid. So it's just
Yep.
wild
Mhm.
to think about how far things have come. And I think it all is that DIY ability of it. Like
Mm.
you
Yeah.
can start a board game company way easier than a lot of other, types of companies where you're making a physical product. Like I can't think of much else where you make a pretty complicated physical product that you have to manufacture and sell and
Yeah.
market. Like you can start from nothing. Like you really can. And a lot of those companies you see on the floor, like I said, they started in a garage. Like this isn't,
Yeah.
Apple starting in a garage and being a trillion
Right.
company. It's like, no, you can actually do pretty good and like the people will love it. Like and you
Yeah.
get the instant feedback too. Like you're gonna know if it's working or not pretty easily when people are buying it and playing it, telling you how it is. But yeah, just not to go on a huge tangent, but yeah, just to go like back to how mainstream it's gone. It's just absolutely nuts, and it's awesome because it's just it rises all the boats. Like everybody's,
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
know, everybody's doing it on Thanksgiving, and like there's a game for everybody. I mean, I forget the number, but I heard like the number of titles that come out each year is something atrociously large. Like it's like tens of thousands of games, maybe even more. So yes, there's competition, but there's so much like little niche stuff. There's games about dogs, there's games about like cats, there's games about birds, there's games about like, you know, doing any type of job that you can think of. There's literally a board game for that. There's
Yeah.
Yeah.
games about the music industry. There's games, you know what I mean? So you get kind of like that theme and the gamification of it. And it's just insane how mainstream and popular it is. It really is. It's just amazing. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you associate that with like the popularity of Stranger Things with like Dungeons and Dragons picking
Mm.
up and like
Yeah.
because like I know with Stranger Things that increased the popularity of D&D
Oh yeah.
astronomically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then like I feel like the board game rise really kind of started then too, and like they just kind of
Yeah.
escalated, and like now you see NFL players
Yeah.
Yeah.
have D&D nights and stuff like that, and it's like
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, I'm personally not like a D&D player, although I would be totally open to play it. It's just not something like I have a group for or anything like that.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But I would say that specific product and that specific like type of game, absolutely Stranger Things like clearly made an impact for sure. But I think just in more general terms, just you know, I mean, honestly, the pandemic like actually helped that a lot. I mean, people
Hmm.
Yeah.
were like, stuck in the house and you know, and video games and board games both got like it saw a surge in popularity because you know there wasn't much to do. Like you
Yeah.
could,
Yeah.
you know, it's one of the few things that to entertain yourself inside your house that's different than just what you're the four walls you're looking at. So, you know, in more recent years, that definitely changed the perspective, I think, and it kind of created a ball that's, you know, the momentum's been rolling. But even in high school, I remember like, you know, it was definitely kind of on the nerdier side of things, but like, you know, in my friend group, we, you know, taught ourselves Catan and it was like, you know, a big deal at the time. And like we got all the expansions and we would like get kind of into some of those games that we look back now as like, okay, those are the popular ones. But back then, like that was not a popular thing to like
Yeah.
Yeah.
play. Now it's like everybody has it on their bookshelf. There's like hundreds of millions of copies sold. But you know, that was just like really niche at the time. And but yeah, and it just it's crazy to think how far that's coming. I can't even keep up with anymore. Like I probably play less board games now than I even did then just because it's like I don't even know where to start. Like there's so
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's definitely hard to find a place to start because like you don't really like have the opportunity to just be like, "Oh, what is this entry level game?" And it's like
right.
there's 70,000 of
Oh
them
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
on
yeah.
Board Game Geek
Yeah.
alone
Yeah.
that they're like, if you like this, try this, try this, try this, try this. And it's
Mhm.
like it's almost like it's a resurgence that was like absolutely needed because now
Yeah.
you have people that are trying to disconnect from the electronics,
Yeah.
Yeah.
from the social medias and stuff
Yes.
like that, because it's like, okay, my mental health can't take it.
Yeah.
Let me escape into this fantasy world for 9 hours like Twilight Imperium.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna jump on that of like that actually is one of my like values too is that I actually you know I'm as addicted to my phone as everybody else. I'm not gonna pretend I'm like
Mhm.
you know I've never had a
Right.
phone except an Android.
Yeah.
Like but like that's one of my kind of goals and values is like there is a little like I think we should admit that we're like kind of losing a little bit of that sociability and like
Mhm.
that is
Mhm.
really truly one of my goals is to get people like face to face a little bit more and when it happens and when it works it's just like amazing and you know you go from people sitting on the couch all scrolling the same feed looking at the same things anyway to just like looking at each other's faces laughing talking about the same thing like you know playing a goal just creating something to put in front of people to like get them to do face to face and I'm really not saying that in like a old grandpa kind of way I'm saying it as like I'm a millennial and even I'm like
Mhm.
ooh like this is obviously going to be a problem. Like we need
Yeah.
to have more of that face-to-face communication and just like getting people to laugh together. You know, I guess there's just no way to say that without coming off as just like old man yelling at cloud.
Yeah, no, I
I
think
was gonna say because we're both millennials, so
Yeah.
and we believe the same thing.
yeah, and I
Okay.
think seeing like the whole tabletop game resurgence sort of shows that people are realizing that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
I
like
100% agree.
yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's like all you hear is like, oh, people's attention spans are getting less and less. And it's like, I don't know if that's true because
Mhm.
these games sometimes have very long instructions.
yeah.
So
I was gonna say there was a game that we had played with a couple friends of ours. It took us an hour and a half to set it up.
yes.
And we were
Yeah.
still intrigued by playing the game.
Yeah.
And we played it until what was it was the Frankenstein one. I can't remember what it was called. We played it with Dan and Miss Lou.
Yeah.
But we set it up. It was like a 45-minute to an hour setup.
Hmm.
And I think we played it and for like another 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, and we ended at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We started setting up at like 12:30.
And
Yeah.
let me just say, wasn't that super satisfying when you were done? Like, didn't you feel like it was 100%
Yes.
worth it?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, and it was, and we were laughing and we were joking,
Yeah.
carrying on and everything. And like it's such a good time. And like I think it's something that we're regaining as a society. I think social media has been such a huge
Yes.
gift and curse. I think it's
Mhm.
Yeah,
really
you're
helped
right
us
with
stay
me.
connected,
Yep.
but it's also been such a deterrent from actually being able to communicate with people and have
Yeah.
a social life and
Yeah.
Right.
and like and stuff like that. But not off that soapbox. Let's talk about your games.
Yeah. And down
um
Mark Zuckerberg. No.
you listen, he helps in certain ways. Um, but Cheer Up, I imagine, was the first game that you came out with,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Which is a play on the on the Cards Against Humanity party genre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you added rules, you added action cards, you added like different ways to play the cards with the ABCs and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Where did that kind of come from, that idea?
Yeah. So like that was one of, I mean, basically, literally, I played games like that, and like I said, I kind of made my own rules. But my whole goal was like, how do I personally fix the things I don't like about these other games? Like,
Hmm.
Mhm.
A, they're really hard to replay because it's not nearly as funny the second time.
Yeah.
B, when you have to manage a bunch of cards in your hand and like, different things that you have to do. And even though it's simple, it's also kind of like, I got to think about, I'm looking at 7 cards in my hand, whatever. It's like, do I save this? Do I leave it? Do I drop it? Do I want to turn it in? And like that part of it is like the least fun part of it is like managing the cards that you have. And it's not
Mhm.
telling the jokes. And then C, the other major difference was games like that in what we call like the judging mechanic. It's a very popular judging mechanic. A lot of those types of party games have that mechanic, which I do also, but it never gives a chance for you to own like your own cleverness. So what I mean
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
that, a lot of them, you like turn the card into the dealer and they shuffle them up and read them themselves. And it's like, well, that's kind of lame. Like I made the joke. I kind of want to like make the joke and like make other people laugh about what I wrote. And I don't want to hear somebody, it's like writing a joke and then hearing some other stand-up comedian say it. It's like, that's kind of
Yeah.
lame. Like I want to say it. So I took those 3 main problems and I literally tried to fix them specifically. And like, so the ABC situation is, it is a question and answer game where you kind of give a funny answer to the question and the judge picks the winner. But the ABCs are all parts of speech. So there's 3 decks of cards in the game: adjectives, nouns, and verbs. And for every question, it tells you what letter types that you need to draw for that hand. So if it
Mhm.
says A and B at the top of the card, basically you don't need to know this, but what that means behind the scenes is that, okay, this answer requires an adjective and a noun to make grammatical sense. So it tells the players they need to draw 2 of each of those cards and they bring those in their hand. Okay, great. So now if you see one of the cards, it doesn't matter at all because it depends on what other card you put with it, what the question actually is, and suddenly all 500 cards or whatever in the game can be reused infinite times instead of just basically once. And it's like, oh, haha, I already saw that joke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's problem A. Problem B, I don't like the management of the cards. It might sound stupid to somebody who plays really hardcore board games when you have like multiple hands and like all these tokens and chips and everything else you got to manage. But for like casual groups, even that 5 second like brain thinking part is like can be a little challenging in terms of just like what do I do here? What do I do here? So you only draw 2 of each card that you need, and the only things you have to manage about your hand is just like which one of which do you want to actually play. You get a 50-50 choice for every one of them, and it reduces the brain friction by like 90%. So you
Mhm.
still have
Yeah.
choice, you still have agency, you still definitely make it say what you want to say, and there's quite a few combinations. So even if there's like just 2 cards, there's 8 ways to put them together, right? If I remembered my high school math. Um,
Yeah, I think so.
or 8 ways or something. So anyway, so like, and then so you're not making a ton of decisions. It's a lot quicker. There's a lot less friction. And then when you're done with the round, all of the cards go away. You don't keep any cards. You have to use it or lose it. There's no holding cards for the next round. There's no like, should I
Mhm.
save this? I want to throw this out. You're gonna get new cards no matter what, which is perfect. And the next round might be a totally different combination of types of words that you need. So you're constantly fluctuating what cards you pick up, what types of cards you see, and every time you reshuffle the cards, it's going to be completely different. So it really makes it
Mhm.
way more variable. And then the final thing about like owning your answer, uh, in this game, you say it yourself. So you don't
Mhm.
turn any answers into the dealer. And the reason why is because some of the you alluded to like every round has a silly rule with it. So it has like a like kind of like those silly kind of rules, but they're like you might have to say this in a funny accent. You might have to add if you know what I mean to the end of what you say. You might have to say you might have to sing your answer, right? Just like little icebreaker type
Mhm.
thing. And we found it was 1,000 times funnier when the people themselves who wrote the answer like perform it for everybody else. And
Mhm.
for a lot of people, that sounds terrifying to be like, I have to perform this game basically. Like it's, I have to do a charade or I have to like, but we found like even when it's uncomfortable, it's 1,000 times funnier and it breaks people
Mhm.
out of their shell. And they're not like hardcore things you have to do, and they last 1 second after you're done doing it. And it's almost like that, wow, that felt kind of good. Like it just breaks the ice instantly. And so
Mhm.
this game, it feels familiar to people who have played games like that before, which I think is a positive because you can kind of get them into it a little bit. But a lot of people after we play are kind of surprised. It's like, oh, it's kind of like those other games I've played, but like way better. Like he
Yeah.
Mhm.
actually like fixed this problem that I don't like. And I'm like, yep, exactly. That's 100% what I was trying to do. And people use this game to replace those games because it's just like more replayable and repeatable. And then we came out with like a couple of expansions and new things that
Mhm.
add even more variability, which can be infinitely added because it's just a word game basically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's a theme to it in that it's like colorful, but like there's no theme in general that I have to worry about. It can just be like infinitely expanded, which is just another thing I like. So that's
Yeah.
how I did it basically.
Yeah. No, we demoed it at Rhode Island Comic Con and
Yeah.
really liked it.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like when I can't remember who we spoke with, but when they were explaining it, sort of that you don't have cards sitting in your hand, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's great. Because it seems like there's always with other games like this one card where you're like, I know who I need to use this
Yeah.
on, and like
Yep.
I just need that perfect
Yeah.
moment, and it
Yep.
never comes.
And yep.
So I love that.
And we
Yeah.
took that and like some of those like sub problems, like I call that like a sub problem where it's like it's not one of the biggest problems, but one of the problems with those games
Yeah.
is like playing to the dealer. And
Yep.
in this game, you literally can't do that because you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
play what you can, what you have. And like, yeah, you might pick a card that's like, this is a funny word that I know my friend will laugh at. But like that doesn't automatically mean you win the round. Like somebody else
Right.
can have just a funnier combination or a funnier word and like might say it in a funnier accent way or something. Like they might talk like a pirate in a better pirate voice than you. So it's not a guaranteed win to be like, I'm gonna save this card for the person I know who will get it. You know what I mean? There's no
Exactly.
it's anybody can get. That's another thing too I want to just quickly say is that there's no political or pop culture references in this game at all.
Mm.
And I think that like surprises some people. But I did that for two reasons. A, I knew it would take a while to sell them the first time, and so I didn't want
Mm.
anything to feel like lame or cringe or like not make
Yeah.
any sense. And
Mhm.
B, like why even bring that stuff into the game when like there's plenty to work with that are just generic things. And like maybe there's like slight references to things, or like you could make a reference to something with like a wink wink kind of thing. But like
Mhm.
there's no people's names, there's no like politics, there's no like, literally no jokes about being a 90s kid or any of that stuff. It's
Yeah.
all like completely generic things that can be evergreen things that can be played 10 years from now easily as much as just today.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that makes it timeless. I love that.
Yeah, and it increases the replayability because it's like
Mhm.
you, especially with the politics thing, it's like you can then play this with your overly conservative grandparents or your ultra liberal cousin, like and
Exactly.
it doesn't create a divisive thing at all during
Right.
holidays or anything. And the one thing that I really did like I'm appreciating right now, and this is a shout out to our last episode, is that we interviewed the makers of Game of Ham, and then we have you guys, and you all taken like a different spin on the generic word party game.
Mhm.
And it's like you're one now you guys are kind of like one upping the original. So
Yes.
now it's like now you're bringing more of a, oh hey, if you guys want to be in our space, you kind of have to like, yeah, you have to find your own niche and your own kind of pathway and stuff like that, which I
Right.
think is really neat. Because when we first started with party games, it was Apples to Apples or Cards Against
Yep.
Humanity,
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
and those were the staples. And
Yep.
now you have Game of Ham, you have Cheer Up, and then your second game, which is Swearmints, which
Correct.
is the one that
So fun.
I really want. I
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to get it. I really want it, and it's just another word game, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
it makes it real. Like it makes it a little bit more adult, or makes it more family friendly, depending on how
Yes.
you want to play it.
Yep.
And why don't you just talk us through that a little bit?
Absolutely. So another thing that's like, here's a great story about just like how some things are just like work out and some things don't or whatever. Or just like how some things like don't happen the way you expect them is basically.
Hmm.
So, and that I told you the story of Cheer Up and how I spent years and years like perfecting it. And honestly, the way it started was completely different than how it ended up being. It was like a totally different game. And like I perfected the artwork and like spent so much time like, honestly sweating the details when I didn't need to at all. And just all this stuff. And so Swearmints, for those who aren't familiar, is a little game that comes in a mint tin. So it's the size of an Altoids tin, literally. Like it
Hmm.
has a little hinge opening and closing and everything like that. The artwork on it is a parody of like Altoids, basically. So it's supposed to
Mhm.
look like that at first glance, but the entire party game fits in the tin. And part of it was a little bit of a pivot to, okay, I made a game that was like a little bit too big and expensive. Like Cheer Up is 500 cards, which is good, but like I shouldn't have started that big. Like it was unwieldy. I had to write a lot of cards, and it was expensive to print. Now it's fine, but at the time it was like I probably should have started a little smaller. So there was this like game contest where this company I print prototypes at came out with a printable mint tin, and so that they had a contest around that, be like, hey, who can make the best game that like fits in a tin? And I took that as kind of like a challenge. I'm like, could I
Hmm.
make a party style game that is that small? Like, I'm thinking like, wait a
That's
minute,
so
that
cool.
actually makes sense in that like
Huh.
somebody could put it in their like pocket and bring it to a party. Like, one of the other things about party games is they can be heavy, they can be big. There are a lot of cards, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to walk into a party with a literally 3.5 pound brick. And like, like that's what if we don't play it? I gotta bring that home. Like, you know what I mean? Like
That's true.
so, and I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, can I make a game that literally fits in your pocket? Like you wouldn't even notice if it was there. And so I came up with this, and this is just like a parlor game that people probably play by themselves all the time, but just it's basically like the name game where there's cards all
Hmm.
over, words all over the cards. Front and back, we ended up fitting 4 words to each side, so I had to really like economically use the space of the cards. Um, and and basically you draw 2 random cards and there's words all over them, and you got to put one word next to another word and tell me what it means. And it's just like, and I've always been a fan of stand-up comedy, and like
Hmm.
George Carlin's words have always echoed true to me when he talked about how powerful like words can be. And I think like there's also silliness in words, where some words just are funny words, and when you just put one funny word next to another funny word, you just start like laughing. Like, I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
Hmm.
people like play the game, we demo it, and just like crack up without even saying anything else, but just looking at the two words. Yeah, there's just like something inherently psychological about that. I can't explain it. So we came up with this kind of like concept where it looks like an Altoids tin, and we're like, okay, we need this to have like something in it that would be like people are going to expect to see like a component here. So I managed to stuff these little mint size green like acrylic cubes. So they're cubes that you would find in other board games as like tokens or markers. And we fit as many as we could in there, and you could fit like 32 cards exactly in it. And I put 2 cards of instructions at the very top and just closed the lid, and it fit perfectly. And I'm like, and I brought this to my friends who, I originally helped develop Cheer Up, like play testing with them. And the second I put it on the table, we just like looked at each other like, yes, 100%. Like you can just, sometimes you just feel it and you're just like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is absolutely it. You've nailed it. Like, this is 100% going to work. And we played a few rounds, and you instantly could just feel like this works. It's so perfect. Like, it's so funny, the parody of it. Like, and so you shake it and it sounds like there's little mints in it. Like, we have this whole concept about it. And then another thing with it was, making adult party games generally, that kind of is its own niche where, it's kind of hard to sell in some stores, and it's a little bit hard to advertise things like that. And so I took the opportunity to make Swearman's actually fully family friendly. So despite its name, there actually is no swears in it, but I gave people the option that there is a spicy edition, not safe for work expansion, which is red, like cinnamon, quote unquote, flavored. And it has every swear word I could think of in it. So that way you can, like, it's this fun little, like, choose your flavor. Like, how dirty do you want it to be? And we have more concepts in the work where they're going to be like different colors, and they'll all be in sleeves, and you pick whatever you want, like mints and Altoids and stuff like that, or gum. It's like,
cool.
looks like gum in the market, in the market. So we really play with that concept, and then we printed them kind of on demand, like for a few print runs, and just did a couple hundred of them. And then I manufactured them for real. And, we're already on our 3rd print of those, about to start. Literally, I'm doing the 4th print right now, because they do crazy, like during the holidays, because they're the ultimate stocking stuffer. Like, it's just this silly joke, and it is an actual game with rules that you can play, but it's also like a silly toy that you can just, like, even kids can play the original version. So it's just been so cool to see. I love, like, when we're at a convention and people pick it up and they're like, what is this? Like, I'm like, are you ready? Like, let's get it. Come over here. This is a game. This is actually a game. And it always gets people into, like, it gets people into our brand a little bit, which is like fun. So those have been massive sellers. Like, I'm really pushing them in retail and trying to get them, like, more out there. We had like Smosh Games, which you might be familiar with.
Yes.
We actually watched the playthrough of it today, just so we had a little bit more of a understanding.
Yeah, that video was a complete fluke. Like, they bought that game from my website and, like, made a video about it, and it was, like, insane.
That's cool.
Like, I couldn't even believe it. And, like, it started going viral on TikTok all over the place, and, like, I had to play more. And it was just like, it's been just so fun, like, seeing that I think there's a lot of more potential too. Like, we're still, kind of indie at small time, but like that kind of product just has tons of potential, and I can't wait to see where it goes,
Yeah, and I've seen both games, I think, at Back Again Board Game Cafe in Middletown.
Yeah, sure.
So
yeah, and the one thing too is, like, with Swearmints, it's one of those things where it's like it's very TikTok friendly too, where it's like you can literally draw 2 cards, come up with it, and it's like a small skit, and like that can really, like, build the social media aspect, which pushes the trends and all that kind of stuff, which then helps business.
It's interactive too, which is really nice.
100%. Like, and I'm not gonna lie, like, that was part of the design of just like, what would catch people's eye about this? Like, post it on Instagram, like, people are gonna be like, do a double take, like, what's gonna catch people's eye when they see it on a store shelf or in a box. Like, that's all part of the marketing for that. And yes, the game is simple, but like the design, the whole product as a whole is the entire product. It's like more than literally the game. But the game, I personally think, is extremely funny. And when you have people who are really good at, like, improv, or they're very creative, I'll admit, not every person likes this type of game when they open it. They're kind of, some people are like, this is just really hard for me to do, and it's just not my
Mhm.
thing. Sure. But like the people who are really good at it, it's so funny, like how out of left field what they come up with. I'm like, I would never in a million years have thought to define what you just said as that. Like it's just
Yeah.
so crazy what they come up with. So we just love that stuff. I love games where the player is part of the content more than the cards are, and where
Mhm.
like that just makes the game way more replayable because the cards is not everything. It's what the players say, which is you can't capture that. It's a real moment that happens, and it's not part of the game. I mean, it's part of the game, but it's not like written down. It's not part of the,
Right.
just like what happens. And that goes all the way back to what we were just talking about that face-to-face interaction. Like you'll never see what happened in that moment in that game probably happen ever again. And it creates this like moment in time that's special that you don't get by scrolling on your phone, and it's just really cool feeling when like that happens, and it makes you feel good. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Like some of my favorite memories have been with our board game friends in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Like
Absolutely.
they are some of the best memories because you just laugh
Yeah.
and have a good time. And like I don't know, board games hold a very special place
Yeah.
for me just because it is just like that communal aspect, and
Yes.
like it's just so nice. And like you have two very distinct games that
Mhm.
really open up the human experience, and like, oh yeah, this person may not feel comfortable acting this out, but then they do, and it's like, where
Uh-huh.
the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
Yep. I've
And
seen
it's
that happen. It's so
Yeah.
fun. It's so funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's really cool to have like accessible, replayable
yes,
party games.
Mhm.
yeah, especially accessible.
Yes.
Like some party games, like you have to have too much of a dictionary in your head.
Yeah, you need to know a lot.
And
Like-
especially with
Yeah.
like especially with the big ones, it's a lot of pop culture that
Mhm.
sometimes I don't know, or
Yeah.
like my sister's 10 years younger than me, she doesn't get a lot of the 90s references.
Mhm.
Yep.
And like
And a week later they're dated. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
and that's part of it. And then it kind of is like, okay, I gotta continue to expand the game. But then like 10 years later, this is gonna look stupid. Like, and it
Yeah.
just my whole thing is, and sometimes I will say in between prints, I always post on my website a blog post about all the changes I'm making to the game. And have been occasional times where I'll remove cards and change cards out. And I transparently explain why every time. And the
Mm.
reason why I do that is because like yes, humor changes over time, and like people's kind of collective sense of humor changes over time. But even just like things that people understand change over time. Like I
Yeah.
had one reference in there that I was like, I don't think people even like really say this anymore. Like I don't think Gen Z is going to understand what the heck this word even is. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just out. Like I'm taking it out.
Yep.
The goal is to make it so at 19 or 90, if they open the box, like they'll get all the words. Like there's a few that are like on the cusp. Maybe they're a little more slangy, but like
yeah.
90% of people, the point is not to be like, who is that? Like that kills immersion in a game
Yeah.
when you're just like, I don't understand what my cards are saying. I'll give you one exception. I don't know if you ever played the game Monikers. Have you ever played that?
Yes. We love
So,
monikers.
That game is cursed in our household, but
It is. It
it
has
has
started a lot of
3
fights.
fights.
It is a more intense game than you'd expect from looking at it.
Yeah.
But that is the only game where it actually gets funner and more interesting the more like dated it is. Like
Yes.
I just busted it out the other day, like the original version I have, which is like 10 years old.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm reading through the cards, and it's like Caesar Milan the dog whisperer and like stuff. I'm like, I haven't thought of this reference in literally like 15 years. And then we try to play it, and it's 10 times funnier because
Yes.
nobody remembers any of these things, and like all the pop culture references and like all the jokes about politics are like, who is this? And then you have to, and for people who don't know, the card, it's like a taboo type of game, and the card itself has like the word or the name at the top that you can't say and you have to describe, but the card also has a full paragraph of what it actually is. So in the first
Yeah.
round you can literally just read what the card says.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
just so funny to be like, this person was the CEO of the company in 2010. And we're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like I forgot about that. Like and
Exactly.
that is the only game where the more dated it is, it's actually more fun, I think. And I think it's one of the more brilliant party games out there.
Oh, it's
No,
so good.
that one, and the funny thing is like I said, it started fights. The fights have not been about the actual
Nope,
gameplay.
it's not. It's
It's-
not at all.
It's usually because we're very good at reading each other and we're both usually on the same team. So like we'll just give a look and it'll be like, oh, Grimace from
Yeah.
McDonald's. And then it's like, how did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's
So,
great. That's
This
great.
is and it's funny because you said Grimace, and
Yeah.
that's an inside joke for literally 5 people.
Yes.
For us, because there was a card, Grimace was the card, and they had to act it out, and the
Oh
person
my
that acted it out had to go.
Oh my
And that's
god.
all it was, and it was just like, what are you doing?
What is this?
Oh man, it is. Monikers is a very good game.
Yeah.
I have to say, that's a game. That's one of those games like I wish I made. Like it really is just that.
Oh, me too.
so
Yeah.
funny. Like it's so simple. It's literally taboo with pop culture with a couple other
Yeah.
like differences, and like I like the artwork and stuff, but like it's just so perfectly designed. It's so
Yeah.
easy
Mhm.
and it's just like timeless in a way that's just funny how dated it can be. I mean, they still update the game. Like they just came out with a
Yeah.
new one
Yeah.
that I bought the other day. But it's just like it's actually even funnier when it's like older.
Yeah.
I was gonna say ours is like 3 years old, I think.
I think so.
Something
Yeah.
like that, like 2.5 years old. And yeah, it, like you even look at it from that point of view, and
Mhm.
it's still
Yeah.
so
It
dated.
ages quick. It ages quick. And like those
Yeah.
other games we're talking about, it's like, in a week, like those games are not gonna make sense. Like I see 100 times I'm in some kind of like design forums and stuff like that. And I see like 1,000 times a month somebody being like, I made this game about like Trump and politics and all these things. And it's like, like in 5 years, nobody's gonna even get
Mhm.
any of this. Like it
Right.
might feel like right now that's all there is, but like
Mhm.
in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, people are gonna be like, who? Like, you know what I mean? That's just how time works. It feels like you're the main character in the main storyline right now, but
Yep.
it's in a short amount of time, that is gonna go away, and you're gonna instantly kill and date your game 100%. And that's all the advice I give to people who try to make like a super referential pop culture game,
Mhm.
unless it's on purpose, like Monikers, where it's kind of
Right.
silly. about
Yeah.
it. But like the people who think it's clever to make an up to the minute game, like that's
Right.
actually
Yep.
the opposite of what you want to do. It never works. It's never funny. It's never evergreen. And the jokes about that stuff you might find funny now, you know, I mean, not even getting to the politics of it at all, just like the fact that like it's gonna be dated,
Yep.
it's just gonna be dated. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just not gonna nearly hit as hard as it does this second, and that kills the longevity of your game instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's hard to kind of be able to I think that's the way that you can like weed out which one's good or which one's bad.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's like which one's trendy, like Vine, and
Yeah.
which one's actually going to stay around, like TikTok.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
For now.
for now, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But we still make Vine jokes all the time.
That's exactly. But it's the novelty of it.
It is the
Yeah.
novelty.
Yes. There is a
Um,
between novelty and like evergreen for everything. Products, social
Yeah.
media,
Yeah.
and like knowing the difference is huge in terms of being able to be successful, honestly.
Definitely.
Oh, absolutely. So with that, you have 2 games out currently, but next month you release a bundle pack of 3
Yes.
games:
Correct.
Drawing Swords, Game of You, and How to Do Anything.
Yes.
They're up for pre-order on your website currently.
Yes.
But they're already fully funded, you said, correct?
Yeah, we did a Kickstarter. After the pandemic, I kind of slowed down with some things. I did a small Kickstarter for a Cheer Up expansion that we launched last year. And then I did another Kickstarter this spring for this 3-pack of bundle games. The first game, Drawing Swords, I made kind of like a first edition that I printed on demand just to try it out. It was like a funny idea. So we ended up like, I just didn't when you print things like small run prints, they're very
Mhm.
expensive. So you're very limited in size and scope of the game. when you mass manufacture something, the possibilities are pretty much endless. You know, even within like a good price point and stuff. So I wanted to mass produce like a full version of that game and fit a lot more stuff in it, a lot more cards in it, which I was able to do. So it's kind of like Drawing Sword Deluxe. So if you were one of the few
Okay.
people who have the original version, it's a much, much better updated version, but
Mm.
it technically is like the same game itself. How to Do Anything was a game that I made a print and play of over the pandemic as like a little project. So it's kind of a
Mm.
funny idea I had. It's basically an improv type game where you have to pitch the CEO of a terrible 90s era how to guide website, how to do a certain thing. So it might be like how to start a business, how to you know, how to make money, how to open wine without a corkscrew, like stuff like that. And the trick of the game is throughout the round, all the players or the writers of the articles are given like ridiculous items that they must use in their pitch. So it might be
Oh,
like
hell yeah.
it might be like a pound of ground meat or like a cardboard box or like a billboard, and you have to figure out how would I start a business using those stupid items. And again, it's kind of like experiments where if somebody's really good at it, it's hilarious what people come up with. I personally am not even that good at those types of games. I just like watching people who are like I'm actually bad at it, but it's just watching people do it. So that was again an original game, but like kind of a remake of a crappier version of one that we had out before.
Okay.
It's like a deluxeified actual printed version, which is cool. Game of You is the 100% original game of the pack that was new for the pack, and it basically is one thing I noticed too was um, there aren't a lot of games where you can actually insert yourself, like yourself, uh,
Mhm.
Mm.
in terms of like, you know, either as simple as like you personally becoming a character or like, you know, even in party games, like sometimes they're about your friends. So party games might be like, oh, who's gonna more likely be this person? And it's like one
Yeah.
of those types of games where you kind of like, you know, making fun of each other a little bit. But I like the idea of like literally putting your name in the game, which is something I hadn't seen done much or at all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In this game, you get a card in front of you. It's like a nameplate, and you write your first name or whatever the equivalent name is, like a name you go by, and you give yourself a silly nickname. So it might be like Crazy Chris or Chris the Hammer or something like that. So there's like prefixes and suffixes that go with it. And then you get these description cards, which are just like little roasts or something like that. And everybody hands out descriptions to all of the face up names that they see anonymously. There is no dealer in this game. Everybody plays at the same time, which is really kind of a fun innovation because then there's no downtime at all. Um,
Mhm.
and then you collect all your items, you anonymously shuffle them up, and you basically roast yourself and you read all the things that people said about you. And so it'd be like, oh, Crazy Chris, maybe that's like my gamer tag, or it's my nickname in prison, or like all these things. And so you pick the funniest one, whoever gave you the one wins, and they get the point. And then the next round, all the cards go away, and you take off your nickname and you give yourself a completely new one, and you play again. There's also what we call the slightly roasted pack included, which is what it sounds like a little bit dirtier, a little bit meaner. So if you have close friends and family, I will say of the three games, this one is the funniest. It's so like it doesn't. It's so hard to explain like out loud. I see your face and you seem interested, but
I wanna play it so bad.
but, like, when you actually play it and you play it with close family and maybe an inside joke comes up that, like, you know, I wrote all the cards, so I don't know you, but if it's a joke that happens to be about you in a funny way, it's almost like the game was made for you. Like, it comes off so literally that it's about you, and the fact that you write your own name in it was just the icing on the cake for me to do that. So it's dry erase, so you can, like, put more people's names in the game, you can play with more people. And it's a little bit more on the traditional side where like, yes, all the cards are written for you and you kind of like anonymously say them. But
Uh-huh.
I think that little twist of it being about you personally really just makes that to the next level.
Yeah. Oh, I
So
wanna play that so bad.
the reason I had the big smile on my face is
Yeah.
this is what I do on a daily basis.
Mhm. Yeah.
Literally, all I do is roast.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now I have a game that allows me to do it,
Yes.
and people might be able to be on my level.
Yeah.
this is fantastic. I
It's
need
pretty
this.
funny,
Yeah.
and it's pretty funny. And drawing swords, just jump back to it because I don't think I explained it, but it's basically a reverse Dirty Pictionary. So you have all these like prompts in the game that are euphemistic words, but they're not dirty words. They're just like euphemisms,
Mhm.
like banana or cyclops, something like that. There's a
Mhm.
theme to all the words that you can probably guess about what they're euphemisms for. So you have an artist on your team who has to draw the word that you have without you seeing it on their artboard. But the trick of the game that there's already something drawn on your artboard, and you must basically
Oh.
incorporate that drawing into your clean drawing. So you actually turn a dirty picture into a clean picture, and you have to get your friends to guess what you're drawing.
Oh,
And
I
it's
love that.
hilarious. If you're into like
I
Jackbox Dictionary Telestrations, it's so funny
Yes.
and kind of just a little twist on that kind of thing.
I love that.
I love the games. I'm terrible at drawing.
Well, and that's the thing I'll
So-
say is that they're all like, let's just put it this way: I got you started.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair
So
enough.
you have to. It's not like you're looking at a blank piece of paper and you're thinking like, where do I even begin?
Right.
Like you get a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
of structure to help you, draw a person or whatever you need to draw to make it make sense. And I found that actually makes it a little less intimidating. You don't have to be a good artist at all. Again, I'm
Yes.
not like I don't make games that I'm good at all, which is I don't know if that's that. But like it's just funny when you're bad at drawing, and if you have two
That's
teams
true.
trying to draw this ridiculous drawing, and you're all shouting out words that you think it is, it's like it's just so silly. And there's hundreds of cards in the game, which I scraped kind of the bottom of the barrel trying to come up with some of them, but
Yeah.
there's a point system, so some of the really tough ones are a little bit harder to draw, and you get more points for that because I figured, some of them you're going to be like, what? How am I even going to draw this? So the three are all the same size game in terms of like box size. They look distinct. They look like they would sit on a bookshelf right next to each other. I really loved this idea of making a little pack of games that
Yeah.
distinct, but they had the same kind of sense of humor. If you liked one, you might
Mhm.
like more. They're all different genres. And a lot of people when you did the Kickstarter just like bought them all. And that was like a really nice surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Now, so you said the Kickstarter is fully funded.
Yes.
If they pre-order one, do they get all three currently still?
So you can pre-order them individually now on our website. So there's no longer an option to get like a pack of them.
Okay.
But you can you can get all three of them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'll hook you
I
up if you
think
want.
we
I'll hook
will.
you up.
I was looking
give
for
you
the
a-
deal.
I'll give you a custom discount code. Yeah, so like so you can still get them sent to you at the same time, like they're all going to release at the exact same time.
That's awesome.
And
Awesome.
yeah, they're quite funny, and we've got to preview like kind of the final versions this weekend and a few of the last conventions, and just like that feeling when people's face light up and they just kind of get it is just so funny. And I just love that feeling of just like making people's day doing that.
Yeah, and I really love that all of the games are just happy. Like the
Yep.
whole like
Yep.
cheer up games like
Yeah.
that. It just
Yeah,
it's
you
such a
definitely
good
embodied the
concept.
brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Game of You is the only one that's like it can be a little bit mean, but I do encourage people to play
Which
with
is still very
it
fun.
well, because if you are comfortable with people you're playing with, it's still really fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't ever make fun of somebody that isn't expecting it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it's really fun. It's still fun for close family and stuff who like already do that kind
Yeah.
of thing anyway. You know what I mean? You're all Japanese.
Exactly.
It's just kind of that in a game form.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So
Yeah.
you said you guys just wrapped up with PAX Unplugged. Is that your last convention of the year then?
That's the last one of the year, so we're going into holiday now. We're kind of focusing on like retail and online. We
Mhm.
sell
Gotcha.
Storments and Cheer Up are both of those lines, and the expansions are on Amazon, or we're in a number of retailers you can find on our website, cheerupgames.com.
Awesome.
You can see a list of like all the stores we're currently in, and we're constantly adding to that as well. We plan to get the 3 new ones out there more as well once they come in, but we're just gonna, as soon as they come in, wrapping them up for the Kickstarter backers ASAP. Anybody who pre-ordered, that kind of thing. And then like kind of, starting from there, probably start, pushing them on TikTok and YouTube,
Mhm.
try to find some places to get people to talk about them a little bit. But yeah, like, and I think at that point, like I'm going to have 5 different game lines, and I want to kind of take a step back with just those and kind of see what's working, what's not, what can I push,
Yeah.
what's I don't, before I dive too far into anything else or even any expansions of anything else. I just want to see like where we go from here, because we'll have at that point quite distinct lines that
Mhm.
I really want to see what's working where. Versus when we had just Cheer Up, it was like either it works or it doesn't. Like
Right.
Mhm.
so, like I can't pivot, but this way I can pivot and be like, oh, Drawing Swords is outselling everything else 2-1. I'm going to order more of those and just keep what I have.
Right.
I can do stuff like that. We may, like I said, we're working on the background, of course, because my mind doesn't stop. Like expansions to the current games we already have too, including more swearments that I teased, which we hope to just release maybe like later next year and just not do it
Nice.
Okay.
if we can. But other than that, like there's nothing directly in the pipe that is definitely coming out sooner than that. Like I
Okay.
said, I'm going to have tons of inventory I'm going to focus on and just see what's working and then go from there. But in terms of ideas and games, I have a notebook full that, that will never end. Like,
Yeah.
guys, I
Yeah.
can't.
And then for the 3 new games, if people want to try before they buy, you said that you're going to be at PAX East
Yes.
next year, which is March 21st through 24th in
Yes.
Boston, right?
That is our
Perfect.
hometown throwdown. We're from Boston area, so it's awesome for us to go. I think this might be, the pandemic makes me a little confused about years and stuff. I
Same.
think this is like our 4th time exhibiting, so
Okay.
Okay.
plus 1 or minus 1. I think it's 4. And I've been going to that show as a guest for like 10 years. I actually have a funny story for you too. I
Yes.
believe on one of your previous podcasts I listened to in preparation for this, I think you had mentioned that you had like a cosplay mishap where you dressed up as something. I kind of quite forget off the top of my head, but it was like somebody didn't recognize what you were or something like that.
Yeah, she was Lara Croft. I was Nathan Drake, and
Yes.
everybody just assumed that I was just a generic ass white dude.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a similar funny story where at PAX East I was there as a guest, and I thought I was being clever, and it was right when, I think it was the year that like Fallout 4 had come out,
Okay.
Okay.
or it was like the year before, like that happened the year before. So I thought it would be hilarious to dress up as Fallout Boy, but not like the band, like the
Yeah.
Fallout Boy character.
Yes.
But I did it as a combination. Like I made myself an emo Fallout character,
I
and
love
Yeah.
that.
Fallout Boy, and I thought it was hilarious. And I
I
even,
love it.
just to make it stick, I even wore a paper sign because I was so worried people wouldn't get it. And I wrote, "Get it? I'm Fallout Boy" on a piece of paper and stuck it to my shirt. So I had like Fallout themed shoes and a Vault shirt, and then like gave myself like eyeliner and like spoofed up my hair and everything and stuff like that. So anyway, I go to the show and I run into somebody who was like working at a booth or somebody, but it was somebody from college who I knew and hadn't talked to in like a long time. And I
Mhm.
turned, they were like, "Chris?" And I turned around, I was like, "Oh my God, hey." And I'm like giving her a hug and stuff. And then she just looks at me and she goes, "Are you wearing eyeliner right now?" And I go, "And that's why I don't do cosplay. I'm done."
Fair. Fair enough.
So
It's
that was
very
my,
hard.
that was my
It's very hard as a
backfiring.
man. It's hard as a man to do cosplay
Well,
because, like,
Yeah.
we're wearing what we're wearing, and nobody would even like question what we're wearing. Like,
Yeah.
right.
Like unless you're a very like iconic, like I'm the Joker, then
Right,
people, it's
100%.
just like I'm a dude.
You can't
Yeah.
dress up
Yeah.
as like any video game character because they all look like the same guy.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because, like, what, the weekend before we had gone out for Halloween
Yeah.
and we did the same costumes.
hmm
I had more people recognize me drunk at a bar
Yeah.
than I did at a comic book convention,
Yeah.
and
I don't know,
I'm really pissed about that.
I don't
Like,
know.
I'm real pissed.
I don't know. But I figured you'd appreciate that.
No,
yeah.
it's a great one.
This
It's a
type
great
of-
one. Well, as we're wrapping up, we have one final question to
Yeah.
ask. What is your all-time favorite board game?
Oh man. So I'm not going to pretend I've played every game because, like I said, they started to get away from me a few years ago. I would
Mhm.
say, what even to this day, and it's kind of old, but and it was one of the first kind of bigger mainstream board games I played. But I really like the Cities and Knights expansion to Catan. Uh,
Okay.
Okay.
and I think it adds like I actually think the base game is extremely boring.
Yes,
It might
I
just
agree
be,
with you.
and it might just be by like today's standards. Like I remember kind of liking it when it was older, but I think by today's standards, it's almost unplayably boring, like on a Monopoly level. It's just
Hmm.
too simple. But when you add the expansions, like the Cities and Knights expansion is what the game should actually be. I think it
Okay.
like adds quite a bit of you know development to like the strategy, and it just feels like you make progress every turn instead of just like randomly win or lose resources and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think, and I haven't played every expansion. I've only played a few of the earlier ones. Now they like go up into space and stuff, and it's like Jesus.
Oh,
um,
I
and
didn't even know. I got out of
there's a
Catan
whole town
after.
where they go to space, and I'm like, okay, that's probably where I jump off. Like, I don't
I
think
feel like so it's that and it's Fast and Furious. I feel like when you need to go to space, you should be done.
yeah, that should be the last one. Every time it's like Freddy goes to space or Jason goes to space, whatever that movie was. And it's like
Yeah,
that's got to be the last. There's nothing else you can do. But yeah, there literally
exactly.
is one where they go to space. But anyway, that's probably my one of my favorite like board games. One of my favorite two-player games is again,
Mm.
these are all gonna be super old references, and I apologize for being lame, but
No.
have you ever played Stratego? That's actually one of my favorite like two-player games. It's like that old game where
Yep.
you all tiles that face you, and it's like a military game, and you have to like
Mhm.
jump on each other's tiles, and it's like if it's a bomb, you blow up, or you got to capture the flag and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have played it a couple times before, but it
It's
was
an
so
old
long
one, like
ago.
25 years old, but, that's one of my, like, just go-to, like, it's super quick, easy to teach, and it's just, like, really
Mhm.
cutthroat and fun. But I have much more library knowledge of just, like, the party game space just from playing a
Mm.
bunch of it,
Yeah.
and, Monikers is honestly up there. There's an older one
It's
that I
up there for
really
us
like.
too.
Yeah, there's one I really like, called, The Metagame. It's kinda older, and it's a little bit obscure, but it's basically
Okay.
smart Cards Against Humanity. It's kinda hard to explain, but
Ooh.
it's like that game, but there's, like, games within a game. It's kinda interesting.
Oh,
And all the
What was
cards
interesting.
that one again?
it's called The Metagame. So it's
The
like
meta game.
look that up. It's
Writing that
older. I
down.
don't even know if it's in print anymore, but that one's a really interesting one, a little bit different, and it's super
Interesting.
mechanically easy, but it's like a thinking man's kind of that kind of game. It's hard to explain until
I
you play
like
it. A
that.
thinking woman's. Um,
Interesting.
and then in terms of more like bigger party games, I love Deception. Have you ever played Deception?
Yeah.
I have not.
It's
Mhm.
a detective murder mystery game where one of you did a murder and one of you is a detective that's giving very weak clues to the other people, and it
Yeah.
always turns into you all like accusing each other, and you're all trying to like get people to
Oh.
not accuse you. Super simple components. It's just cards basically. But I love that game for like a massive group. If you have 10 people, it's so fun and well made. But yeah, you might like that game if you have like a big party group that's really outgoing. It can be very
Yeah.
fun. People get into like acting and role playing a little bit as the role players.
Love that.
Another one I like for big groups is Mysterium a little
Oh,
bit.
we love
I
Mysterium.
was just about to
Yeah.
compare Deception as like a competitive Mysterium almost, it
It's
sounds.
kind
Mm.
of similar to that, yeah, where Mysterium is like kind of co-op and
Yeah.
Deception's like more one person on an island trying to make sure that they're like trying to win.
Yep.
Yeah, but man, I'm trying to think of some others.
I will
Like
say one of my favorites, because I don't think we've actually talked about what our favorite was last week at all either.
Nope.
One of my favorites is Reavers of Midgard.
Yes.
okay,
So good.
It's like it's up to 4 players. I think it's like 2 to 4,
okay,
and it's a how the hell do you describe it? It's a collection combat. It's you'd have to look up some gameplay. It takes like an hour and a half to 2 hours to play.
okay,
But it's one of my favorites because like you can collect things, you have to fight sea monsters, you have to maneuver yourself around the board while collecting other like useful points and stuff. It's very Euro gamey.
okay,
It's very
Yeah.
Euro gamey.
sure.
But that one I really like. Mysterium's also a big one for me.
Very. Yeah.
My
Um
I was just gonna say
Yeah.
I thought of one more that's like my favorite, probably best designed 2-player game I've ever played is probably Seven Wonders Duel.
We
You
haven't
haven't,
played it
yeah.
yet, but we know
Is
we
it
have
is
friends that have
so
it.
fun. It's so satisfying. It's kind of it's a little bit tricky to learn. I mean, for me, but
Mhm.
like once you learn it and you get the rules and you can just like jump right in and play against each other, like it's a great game
Mhm.
for couples. It's a great game for like, friends that like are live in the same house or something, where you can like play another round right away, right? It's
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's quick, but it's like a battle game where you're constantly managing these 3 victory conditions and giving and taking in each of
Oh.
them. And it's so satisfying to like just come up upon your opponent in one area that they didn't even think of. And it's super small box too. It's like the size of a moleskin notebook, basically. It's like,
Oh.
and a little bit thicker. It's like the size of a thick book, but it's about that big in terms of like how wide and long it is. So it's
Mm.
actually really portable, and there's some cool components in it. It's probably one of the better designed, at least that I've played, which is not a ton, like other games that I've played. Me and a friend are like cutthroat at it, and it's very satisfying to beat somebody in it.
Yeah, no, another one I was actually thinking of is, Dice Throne.
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that's a really
yeah,
good one.
Dice Throne is a fun
yeah,
one.
He loves anything with dice.
yeah. Have you played Dice Forge?
No, I want it
I
really
know, we
bad,
see it
though.
every time and we're like,
You'll like
"Ooh,
that
we gotta
one.
get
You'll
that."
like that one. That one's
Yeah,
again,
no.
that's a game that like seems for me intimidating, but it's actually very simple. And
Mhm.
it's really easy to play and it's replayable. It's very easy to understand. I'm gonna give one more shout out too for anybody who wants to learn a lot of games quickly, like me, who's just overwhelmed. Have you ever played on Board Game Arena?
I
No.
have not.
So you should definitely check this out. It's a website, so everything is like on the browser, and it's a place where you can. There is a subscription if you want to get like everything, but there is a
Yeah.
freeware version where it's just like a little limited into what you can play. And it has, I don't know the number, but it's got to be like 1,000 digitally recreated board games. And I don't
Whoa.
mean like you literally pick up the pieces and move them on a table. I mean like they from the ground up built the game in the browser professionally with developers, and a lot of the
Wow.
time with the support of the publisher. So like a lot of
Wow.
them are official. They're basically officially licensed like digital games, except it's one place and they're all there. You can play against each other for free over 2 computers. Like so you can play on your
That's so
phone. So the
cool.
2 of you can literally like without even buying the game play against each other. It's extremely fun.
Mhm.
And the silliest thing about it is the premium subscription is something like $30 a year. And it gives you like 1,000 games and they constantly add more. And it's like
That's crazy.
I have a
That's
friend that's
amazing.
like really remote that I grew up with that lives very far away, so we rarely see him. But
Mhm.
it's a great way to stay connected. We both love board games and we'll play like every once in a while we'll be like, hey, want to jump on Arena and just play Seven Wonders, and we'll just go down a rabbit hole playing like 10 different games. And it's just and I should mention too, they have tutorials. So like if you I've learned probably
Oh.
25 new games, and the game tells
Yeah,
you how to play while you play it. You can like it will tell you the step by steps. You can do a tutorial. You can read the rule book. You can read strategy. You can read like
That's
forums about
awesome.
the game. Some of them have expansions. So that's why I was asking about Dice Forge, because I learned how to play that game on there. And
that's
it's
so
some of the games
cool.
are much better digitally because you don't have to actually like lose pieces and roll dice and like keep track of
Yeah.
points. It keeps track of everything for you. It's amazing. I don't want to almost like make it too mainstream because I think it's underpriced.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah, no.
yeah.
I'm
it's
very
really cool.
happy
It's
you
really
told
cool.
us about that
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
no,
the only one
especially
I
like
knew was, like, Tabletop Simulator,
mm,
and
It's
that
not
one's
that. It's like Tabletop Simulator is more like for people like me where I wanna, like, actually render a game and see what it would look like on
yeah,
a table, and, like, sometimes when you pitch something to a publisher, like, they'll want you to make a simulated version. That's
okay,
something that you can DIY if you have, like, very minor, you know, computer skills about, like, artwork and graphics. Uh,
right.
that's not this where you, like, literally pick up the pieces. It's a fully rendered game where the whole game auto moves everything for you. Like,
That's
it's
awesome.
amazing. You can play with randoms on the internet, like, it's
that's
awesome. It's
cool.
so much fun.
Hell
Those
yeah.
there's like every game has a rank. Like you can be the
Ooh.
best in the world at Azul if you want to be. Like it's just like so cool. It's really 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 well made and designed, and they constantly add new games. So I haven't even been on in months, but they probably have a ton of new stuff now.
I'm
Yeah,
going to favorites then.
Yeah.
Please
we-
look it up right after this because you'll go down a
Yes.
rabbit.
Oh yeah. And I think especially for somebody like me who I love to play games, but like learning them,
Yep.
Mhm.
it
That's
just
the worst
if
part.
you
The worst
yeah,
part.
if you
Yep.
sit there and you read a rule book
Yep.
to me, it's just my eyes are glazed over. I can't. I need
My
to play
rule
it.
my
to
rule
learn
when I
it.
make games is 2-page rule book. Like
I
no
love
matter
that.
what,
Perfect.
my games have a 2-page rule book, and usually it's like the inside pages. I mean, like you have
Yeah.
a little pamphlet, and the outside is a title. The insides of basically the rules, in the back would be
Amazing.
something funny, or like a score sheet, or like maybe it's just the butt end of the rest of the rules or house rules, maybe.
Mhm.
But like
Yeah.
if I stick to that, it's much less intimidating for you to open a 1-page pamphlet and be like, "This is
Yes.
it? Okay, so I just have to read this or go through it as a turn." Then
Yeah.
like reference page G76, and that will tell you the ending out. And I'm like, that's the stuff
Mhm.
that like intimidates me so much about learning games. I need to be
Yeah.
like a visual person, like I need to play around. And so
I'm
that's
the
why
same
Board Game
way.
Arena actually helped me learn a ton of new games I never would have played on the table. Like it's really cool.
That's kind of
I'm
dope. And
very excited about that.
I mean, that links it back to at least it's not Twilight Imperium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. They might even have like that exactly or something to that caliber. Like they actually have
Mhm.
a ton of extremely complicated hardcore games on there that
That's
I
so
can't even
cool.
imagine how they made a digital version of. Like it's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, we're gonna
Yeah.
have to look at that.
Yeah.
But Chris, we
Yeah.
cannot thank you enough. This has been a fantastic interview. We want to thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
If you are listening to this, it is Cheer Up Games on all the social medias: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, www.cheerupgames.com to go pre-order all of the games that he talked about. Buy Cheer Up, buy Swearmints, and support as much as you can, because these are all very fun games and we're definitely going to get some.
Oh, absolutely.
So for Chris, I'm Damien,
And I'm Ashley.
and this has been Casually Die Hard.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.